put the thread through, okay. And then you clip, leaving about 2 inches at the top and 2 inches below, okay. If you cut the fabric in 2 layers, it means that you have to make sure that your thread is longer, right? So that you can divide your thread for the top layer and then the bottom layer, okay? Basically, the thread through, take it off, and just that becomes your drill hole, okay? Now we have to mark our pocket line, okay, on the drill hole. Okay, you need a chalk for this. Then we have to make our welt, right? Now we fold our welt in half, wrong sides to right sides together, okay? Now before you do all this, try and mark the wrong sides and your right side, okay? So this is your wrong side, right? Indicated by, can you guys see?
Zoom out a little bit.
So you mark the wrong side. Okay, of both the welt and the self, okay? So this would be right sides together for the welt. Okay, we're going to stitch each side a quarter inch. For your code project, these will be fused, okay, because I'm working with the heavy felt. So I don't want to fuse it to make it more bulky, right? And then normal technology will fuse it, okay? Okay, so we stitch the welt right sides together, right? We're going to clip the corners of it, leaving about an 1/8. Okay, so it's easier to turn and reduce bulk at the edge of the welt. So that. Okay, now to turn it, just going to press my seam open with my hand, right? And then just push in the corners, right? Same thing here. Pushing. Now with the tweezer or a stitch ripper, you can just push out the corners. Okay. I'm just gonna press it flat. Then we have to decide on the width of the pocket, right? So you'll have to stitch it first before you mark the width, right? Because your pocket width can change depending on how your foot is, right? So it might be maybe a 1/16 off or maybe an 1/8, right? So you make the welt first, okay? Then you mark the width of the pocket on the pocket line, okay? I'm going to mark the. Now the seam allowance for the welt is 1/2 inch, okay? You can eyeball it, right? 1/2 inch. If you know you can't, just mark 1/2 inch above your pocket line, okay? You mark 1/2 inch on the pocket welt. Then we match the seam allowance to the pocket line, right? Matching the edge to the 1/2 inch we marked up, okay? So now we need to stitch down our welt. Now there's 2 ways to go about this, right? One, we'll slit this, the seam, okay, maybe about 3/4 up, and just stitch down one of the seams, okay? It's similar to what you guys did for your breast pocket, right? Okay, just to reduce bulk. Okay, if you want to learn that, just let me know and then I can just show you, okay? So you start from the edge, like that. Okay, make sure that you're going right to the edge, okay? And remember, we are stitching on the right side of the cell, okay? Go right to the edge, come back and back tack, okay? Now when you're back tacking, you want to make sure that you're not back tacking right to the edge, okay? So you come to the edge, you go in and you back tack, maybe about an 1/8 to 1/4 away from the edge, okay, so that the edge can be cleaner, okay? So now that's our welt, okay? Now we need to stitch down our pocket bag, okay? Now there's two sides of the pocket bag, okay? There's a short, one is longer than the other, okay? So we're going to stitch the longer one, okay, to the self, and then we're going to stitch the shorter one to the welt, right? Okay. So the longer one goes underneath our seam allowance. Okay, match it, try and match it to the seam. Matching it to the seam. However, I am also centering it, right? So the distance from the edge to your welt should be even on both sides, right? Now I want my pocket top stitch, the next stitch to sit inside a bit, right? So I'm going to mark about 1/2 inch. Okay, in from the edge of my welt, okay, on both sides. Okay, so 1/2 inch in, 1/2 inch there, right? Now you can use the edge of your welt seam allowance as your guide to the stitch, okay? Or if it's too bulky, you can just move it out of the way, okay? Okay, 1/2 inch in, 1/2 inch in, stop, okay. Now we have to clip in between our seam, okay? So the seam of the welt and the seam of the pocket bag, okay? There is this gap in between it, right? So I'm going to slash that gap into half, okay? This is exactly how you guys did your welt pocket for CGC, I think 210? 310? Okay, so I clip the middle. Okay, so slash between the middle, right? Then when you get to the last stitch, about 1/2 inch to the last stitch on the lining, you stop, okay? Remember that the lining is shorter stitch than the welt, right? So when you get to about 1/2 inch before, okay, the last stitch on the lining, you stop, okay? I'm going to mark it for you guys to see. So that's the last stitch, okay? So that's the last stitch for the welt, and this is the last stitch for the pocket bag, okay? So when you get to 1/2 inch before that, you stop, okay? Now reverse that on the opposite side, okay? So clip to 1/2 inch before the last stitch on your lining, okay, then you stop. Okay, now I'm going to clip a V, okay, from my last clip on the middle to my last stitch on the lining, not to the thread. Leave about a 16th, okay, away. Okay, you don't want to clip to it, especially on fabrics that fray. It's easily going to fray. Okay, also make sure that for your welt or all pockets, you have stabilized the back of wherever you're making the pocket, right? Okay, so you fuse it to make sure that the back is stable, so that when you clip, they don't fray. Okay? Okay, so you're going to clip to at least a 16th before, right? On both sides. Okay, make sure you don't cut to your last stitch, okay? Clip leaving about a 16th, okay, or even an 8th, depending on the fabric you're working with, okay? Okay, any questions so far? Okay. Okay, so now we have to push our pocket welt in. Okay, then now our pocket bag goes in. Okay, then our welt is almost done. Okay, so now I'm going to stitch my lining, the shorter one, okay, to my welt to clean finish it before I press. Okay, now the right side, so check. Okay, so let's go back to this again. Now, when you're making a pocket, when the whole jacket is lined, okay, when it's fully lined, you want the good side to be inside the pocket, right? When you're making a jacket which is half lined, you want the good side to be on the inside of the jacket, right? So that when you open the jacket, you can see the lining looks good, right? But when the whole jacket is closed with the full lining, you want inside of the pocket to look nice. So in theory, whatever that's exposed has to look the best, okay? So the inside of the lining is exposed, you want the lining to look good. If it's closed, you want the inside of the pocket to look good, okay? So now we are going to match it, right? So this is the inside of the pocket, okay? Now you want to make sure that it's even on this side too, okay? So when we fold it down, we want this to be on the inside, right? Okay. So this side, I'm going to mark it as my wrong side, okay? So this is also my wrong side. Okay. Now, wrong side to the inside of my welt, right? You also want to center it, okay? Okay, so the wrong side of my pocket bag, okay, to the inside of my welt, okay? And you guys see what's going on here? Okay, so this is the seam allowance of my welt, right? Let me place it this way. Okay, so we push our welt seam allowance in, right? Okay, now the wrong side faces that. Okay. Also, I'm double checking to make sure that my weight is even, okay, on both the longer pocket bag and the shorter one, right? So I match that. Double check to make sure that it's centered, okay. Center it, okay, match the edges, okay, then I'm going to use my welt stitch as my guide to edge stitch, okay, all the way. Okay, you can stitch on it if you want, or you can use it as a guide to edge stitch. Any of it is fine. get to the end, back tie. Okay. So I have the longer one attached to the self and the shorter one attached to the welt, right? So now let's press. So the first step is that my back seam, okay, for myself and my bag, I'm going to press that both. Okay. Okay, remember that whenever you're making garment, okay, you want to reduce bulk. You don't want to feel anything bulky on your garment, right? So when you split the seam open and press, it means that you're reducing bulk and not pushing all the seam allowance towards one side, okay? So that's pressed open, right? Now, also make sure that the seam of the pocket bag and the welt is pressed open, okay? If you don't press it open, it's going to fold up and it's going to form a pleat, right? So you want to make sure that that seam is also pressed open. Okay, so I'm going to check, right? I'm going to check to make sure that this seam is pressed open, okay? Okay, so now we have to press the seam of the welt open, okay? Okay, so that press flat with the seam open, okay? The seam at the top open as well. Okay. Make sure it's sitting flat. Okay, go. Okay, so we want to stitch our pocket bag. Okay, I'm just gonna put a pin at the top to make sure that my pocket line is straight. Okay. Now I'm going to lift my side. Okay. Remember we had a V here, right? So you want to make sure that that V is pulled in. Okay. Then I'm going to start from the side. Okay. Try and get as much as close as possible to the edge of the welt, right? If you can't, that's fine, but try and get close. Okay. Match the edges, and we are going to stitch 1/2 inch all around. Okay. Okay, so for yours, I would like you to search around the pocket bag. Okay. Now we have to tack the sides. Okay. We're going to finish one side by hand and then finish one side by machine, right? So for the machine, I'm going to start right in the seam, right? Remember that we clipped 2. If you clip too close to the stitch or clip away from it, you're going to get a hole here, right? I don't want to see any hole. It has to be tight. That's why we don't really clip to the thread. We leave a little bit so that that corner is tight. Okay. So I'm going to edge stitch. Okay. The edge of my welt. Okay. Make sure that it's sitting flat, and I'm starting from the inseam, the seam of the welt. Okay. Edge stitch. Tag. Get to the top. Now you can have one stitch depending on what you're making, right? It's all details, okay? But we're going to have a double top stitch first, okay? So pivot, okay, stitch about a foot away. Okay, now when you get to the top, you can back tack it a bit, okay? Just that the top is reinforced, okay, because you're going to be putting your hand in and out, right? You want the top to be tacked. Okay. Sometimes they can even back tack it after just to keep it in place. Okay. Okay, so pivot, right? And then we stitch to the seam. Okay. Up, and back tack. Okay. So that's the side. I'm going to finish the other side by hand. Okay, so normally you would top stitch the welt for casual jackets. So this is the double, this is the single. Any of it is fine, okay? It all depends on what you're making and the detail of it, right? And then the hand is mainly when you're doing like bespoke jackets or you want a much cleaner finish, eliminate more stitching, then you do the hand, okay? Okay, so you thread your needle, right? Now, we're not knotting, right? We're not making a knot, okay? I'm just going to push my needle through my self, okay? So it's going through the back, right? Okay? To the corner, okay, of my welt seam, okay? Remember, I'm only using one thread, right? When you get there, just run a few tacks there. Okay, create a loop and then knot. Okay. Okay. So now I'm going to catch myself, okay, and I'm going to catch my bottom seam. Okay. So remember, there's two layers to the seam now, right? The top and the bottom, right? I'm only catching the bottom one. If you catch the top, you're going to have your thread exposed on the side, right? So I'm only catching the bottom one. Okay, so I'm going through myself and to the bottom layer of my welt sides. Okay, okay, leave about an 8 gap in between. Okay, don't make your gap too wide. Okay, an 8 is fine.
Could you zoom in on that by chance?
Okay, you good now?
Thank you.
Okay, so you go through the bottom. Okay, catch the bottom seam, right? And push up. Okay, down through the self. attaching the bottom